I think immigration is one of the most important parts of America. And thank goodness immigration continues, because it brings to our shores amazing people, new generations of leaders who found countries and found companies and work hard so that their children and their children's children will do better. If that is a fact about America and our history of immigration, there's also another fact. There have always been haters, people who hate immigrants. I don't know when it started. Maybe after the Mayflower landed, the folks got off and said, please don't send us any more. But it's been part of American history and part of American political history and part of the United States Congress. Just yesterday, it was disclosed that a member of the House of Representatives, Congressman Stephen King of Iowa, spoke to the issue of the Dreamers. I don't know how many Dreamers, students who would qualify for the DREAM Act, that Congressman King has met. I have met hundreds of them. They are amazing, incredible, living their entire life in the United States undocumented, fearing deportation any minute of any day, wondering what tomorrow will bring, standing up in the classrooms of America and pledging allegiance to the only flag they have ever known, singing the only national anthem they know, and being told by so many people, you don't belong here. You're not part of this country. They are completely conflicted and worried and uncertain about their future. And they are nothing short of amazing. These young people have done things with their lives which just are incredible. They are the valedictorians of their classes in many cases. They've gone on to college and paid for it out of their pocket in many cases. I've come to the floor on 54 different occasions with color photos of these Dreamers from all over the United States when they gave us the permission to disclose their identity and told their stories. And every time I've told that story about that Dreamer, someone has stopped me in the hall and said, that's an amazing story about this young person who just wants to be part of the United States and its future. And so it was troubling yesterday to pick up and read the quote from Stephen King, who is a congressman from Iowa. Mr. King is no newcomer when it comes to criticizing immigration. He introduced a bill 3 or 4 weeks ago in the House of Representatives, which would have removed all the federal funds that are being used now to spare these Dreamers from deportation in the United States. In other words, the President has issued an executive order so the young people who are eligible for the DREAM Act can stay. He wanted to remove all the funds so they'd have to be deported immediately. He called that for a vote. It passed in the U.S. House of Representatives just a few weeks ago, overwhelmingly supported by his Republican side of the aisle. So Stephen King has a record of opposing immigration and doing it in a very forceful way. But they found a quote which he'd made, a statement he had made on the issue of the Dreamers, and that's why I come to the floor today. In an interview with Radio Iowa, Mr. King said yesterday, "It seems as though I have a few critics out there, but those who have been advocating for the DREAM Act have been trying to make it about valedictorians," King said in an interview with Radio Iowa. "I don't disagree that there are Dreamers that are valedictorians, but it also would legalize those that are smuggling drugs into the United States." In his original comments, Congressman King of Iowa said, quote, "For everyone who's a valedictorian, there's another 100 out there who weigh 130 pounds, and they've got calves the size of cantaloupes because they're hauling 75 pounds of marijuana across the desert," end of quote. In his interview Tuesday evening, Congressman King doubled down on those comments, according to the Washington Post, saying, quote, "We have people that are mules, they're drug mules, that are hauling drugs across the border, and you can tell by their physical characteristics what they've been doing for months," end of quote. Mr. President, if you're going to be part of this political business, you better have a pretty tough spine and a pretty hard shell, because people throw criticism around all the time. And if you can't take it, this ain't beanbag, do something else. But I deeply resent what was said by Congressman King about these Dreamers. It is totally unfair. It's mean and it's hateful. Don't take my word for it. Take the words of the Republican leaders who responded to Mr. King. House Speaker John Boehner, commenting on Congressman King's comments, called them, quote, wrong and hateful. That's from Speaker Boehner. House Majority Leader Eric Cantor, Republican of Virginia, said they were, quote, inexcusable, end of quote. During a House Judiciary Committee subcommittee hearing Tuesday, Representative Joseph Garcia, Democrat of Florida, described King's words as, quote, beneath the dignity of this body. Representative Raul Labrador, Republican of Idaho, who's been heavily involved in immigration reform, expressed hope Wednesday that King regretted his remarks. Quote, there's nobody in the conference who would say such a thing, and I hope that if he thought about it, he wouldn't say such a thing again, close quote, Labrador said. It is heartening to know that members of Congressman King's own political party, Republicans, have stated unequivocally how awful his statement was. It troubles me and it's heartbreaking to think that these dreamers, these young people who are simply asking for a chance to be part of the United States, would be characterized as dope smugglers and drug smugglers. Obviously, Congressman King's never read the DREAM Act, because if you've ever been convicted of a crime, you can't be approved through the DREAM Act for citizenship, not a serious crime. That's part of the law. He should know better, but I'm not sure that he cares. I'm glad that members of his own party have stepped up and branded these comments for what they are. And what I have to say to him is take a moment away from the media, meet some of these dreamers and hear their stories. Hear what they've been through and hear about what they want to do with their lives for the United States of America's future. And to the dreamers themselves, this isn't the first criticism they've run into. They've taken a lot. They're courageous young men and women. When I started this trek, this 12-year trek on the DREAM Act, I used to give speeches in Chicago about the bill, and there'd be audiences full of Hispanics usually. Nothing much would be said, and I'd go out to my car afterwards, and in the darkness, there'd be a couple students waiting by the car. And they'd call me to the side after they looked both ways to make sure no one was around, and they'd say, Senator, we're dreamers. We're counting on you to give us a chance. Over the years, these young people who waited to greet me in the darkness when no one was around have now stepped up. They're identifying who they are so America knows what's at stake. And when you meet the dreamers, you will really realize how awful and wrong these statements are by Congressman King. There will always be critics of immigration in America. It's part of our national tradition. But I do believe the vast majority of Americans are fair people. They are people who believe in justice. They do not believe that a child should be held responsible for any wrongdoing by their parent. If their parent brought them to the United States as a baby, they had no voice in that decision. Why should they be penalized for that decision? They should be given their own chance to become part of this nation's future. I'll close by saying that maybe Teresa Lee wasn't the first dreamer in my life. My mother was brought here at the age of 2 and certainly didn't have much of a voice in the decision to come to America. But thank goodness her mother and father decided to make that trip, and that my grandparents located in Illinois and gave me a chance to grow up in a great place with a great family. That's my story, and that's America's story.